And we're going to talk now about leases.
Okay, so we're going to talk about your lease agreements, the applications and the lease, the required informations, the addenda, the legal and illegal clauses, and also some of the resources that can help you with your leases. Okay. As you know, we're the OCES office. We are located in 151 Spare Hall. This is our number and this is our email, and all of this can be found on our website. Okay.
Once again, this is the general stuff that we cover in our office. We help with the database. We're going to go into depth about our leases. We advise students on various topics, and we do some engagement with the off-campus community. As we've said, we put our information on every presentation just because we know we won't answer every question, and there are maybe other questions that come out throughout the year. So please do contact us. That's what we're here for. No question is too frivolous. It's always good to double check. So yeah, make sure you contact us if you have any other questions.
Okay, so here we're trying to talk about what is an application versus what is a lease contract. So an application is filled out before signing a lease, and it's typically just to show your interest in that particular property. So what you can look for in an application is the financial security and credit checks. They would ask you for like co-signer information. They would ask you for a deposit, a fine print, or like an application fee. However, a lease is a legally binding contract that outlines the terms and conditions of the agreement. So that's where they would have like the dates of the lease term, the rental amount, all the fields complete, with the utilities, what is involved, and also the addendum clauses. So what do you need to know? So what you need to know, as someone asked actually during the break, is that first month's rent is normal to put down as a deposit and is refunded until the lease is signed. So do not deposit it until the lease is signed. And also realtors and landlords should provide a payment schedule for the first month's rent, last month's rent, the security deposit, and the broker's fee. And those are just some norms that you should expect when you are going to sign a lease. Okay, so for the standard leases, most of Boston leases are standard fixed term leases, and other locations definitely do have a common template too. So most of the leases will be, under standard fixed term, but they would not all follow the same format. So again, as you mentioned, some of the requirements are the date of the lease term when you're going to move in or move out. You want the name of the landlord and the property manager. And if you can just kind of do a comparison between this information and what we're talking to you about scams, you would understand that you definitely want to know the name of the landlord. The names of all the tenants should be written on the lease. And this is to legally favor everyone that's actually living in that property. You'd want to have the address and the unit number of where you're staying in, the monthly and term rent, when rent is due, the contact information for maintenance, and the signatures and dates of every single party, which is every single roommate. Some of the pro tips that as we have stressed, is that you should get all the names on the lease. Every single roommate should be on the lease. You should have verbal promises in writing. You do not want to just stick to having verbal promises with your landlord. It's always safer to have everything in writing. And this is why we would say email is the best form of communication with the landlord. You should also,
keep going.
Okay. You should always request a completed lease to review, and you should also request all the addenda before signing, and make sure you ask questions. If there's something you don't understand, make sure to ask questions, because this is definitely, sometimes there might be loopholes, and you really want to make sure you're getting what you need from that lease. Chester, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, no, I was just going to reiterate the addenda. I know there was a question in the chat about that too. You should always read all of it and send it back to the landlord if you have any questions. Any weird questions, it's always good to ask. And those are definitely things you can always ask to change. For example, ones that I think I've seen before is there's often, I think we're going to talk more about sublets in our next presentation, but there's a sublet or roommate change clause in some leases that if you're going to sublet your property, there's going to be an amount you have to pay the landlord. That is something that happens usually in the addenda or pet policies. There could be like, oh, all pets allowed except for geckos. I don't know if you want to ask about that, but it's something that could be in the addenda. So you should be reviewing your own leases. And if you have questions, we do have the Lease Genius page on our website where you can submit an inquiry. But you and the landlord should be in agreement on the lease before you sign the completed lease. And here we have the addenda I was just talking about, subletting policy. Oh yeah, common ones are the trash policy and fines, like what day of the week the trash is, because the city of Boston only collects trash at certain periods, and you definitely don't want over trashed areas because that attracts lots of different pests as well. And if you have trash in your apartment, if there's cleaning fees, if there's fines, noise is another common one where at certain hours, they don't want you to playing more than loud music. Guests is another one. And all these others are pretty common in addenda, and you want to look for all of them. The maintenance ones is one you might want to specifically look for more if you think there's going to be maintenance issues, how to report it. Some landlords will say that they'll get to it within 24 hours. Some say 48 hours. Some say the best way to communicate is via email, some by phone. So you really want to be very sure about kind of how to contact the landlord or report those maintenance issues as they come up.
Ooh, legal and illegal clauses in Boston. Chester, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So there are a lot of fines and fees that are listed in your addenda, and they could maybe be a little bit overwhelming for people renting in Boston for the first time. So we're just gonna go through some very common fees that can be on the lease and some that cannot be. So some of the fees that can be charged to you are ones that kind of disrupt the environment. So cleaning, if you have if you have a unit that's caused issues, that's dirty and it's attract pests, if you're overly noisy in your unit, you can be charged. You can also, Boston Police may also report if there's been noise violations, multiple ones in your unit, and trash fees. If you don't remove your trash in a responsible way in accordance with the trash schedule, those are all fees that can be charged legally as written in your lease or addenda. And as I said before, the sublet and roommate change fee is one that can be listed in a lease. Once again, those are things that can be negotiated, but it is common for those to appear because there are a lot of sublets in Boston. Illegal process are the landlord or property manager is always supposed to address pest issues. This one does relate back to the cleaning and trash though. So they address pest issues that are there if it isn't caused by the tenants of the unit. For example, if there are lots of fruit flies because you haven't taken out your trash in months, then that goes back onto the tenants, not the landlord. But if there are pests that exist when you move in immediately and there are bed bugs, the landlord has to address that issue and cannot charge a fee for that. The same goes for snow removal. They cannot charge to have for snow removal. The pet fee, they can either allow pets or not allow pets. They always have to allow service animals, but they cannot charge a fee for pets, if that makes sense. I know that one's a little weird. They can allow pets or not allow pets. They can't charge a fee for pets. They all have to allow service animals. Routine maintenance fee, that's just not a thing. That's probably a sign of a scam. And re-signing. So the re-signing, they can't charge a fee. They can raise the rate. So this one's, I think there's a double star next to it, but there can't be a fee for re-signing. If I hope that's clear. They can raise the rates in accordance to the signing. Ooh, Lisa, the emotional support. So this is a very gray area for property in Boston, because the only service animals that can exist in Massachusetts are dogs and I think horses. But emotional support animals vary. They can include cats, snakes, and ESA. Yep, Kieran has it correct. Kieran, do you want to speak more? I think you probably have more expertise in this area than I do. Or if you can't talk.
Yes.
Oh,
No,
there we
I
go.
can talk. So service animals in Massachusetts are limited exclusively to dogs and horses. And emotional support animals can be animals of any kind. They do get different legal protections. So the Americans with Disabilities Act protects all service animals. And so a landlord cannot deny you the right to have a service animal in an apartment. But should an emotional support animal cause any kind of disruptions or pose any kind of threat to the safety and well-being of other people in the apartment, so if someone such as the landlord has a severe allergy to cats, they are allowed to deny you having an emotional support cat in your housing. I'm going to link the mass.gov website's page on assistance animals in housing, and that will go into more details about the laws and acts that specifically govern each of those categories.
Okay, thank you, Kieran. And then the things you want to consider negotiating, as we talk, everything can be asked, negotiated. The notice of entry is it's a common one, because when there's maintenance issues, most landlords want to address the issue because they don't want their property to be damaged. But it's how they do it and when they do it. So in a lot of leases, it'll say that within 24 hours, they'll address major or maintenance issues. But if there's a major one, they only have to give you a 2-hour notice. So you might want to negotiate how they're entering to address maintenance issues, whether it can be a non-threatening one, like they have to repaint, versus a really big issue like a water pipe burst. So those are the things in the clauses you want to consider negotiating if it doesn't suit your living condition. And then the fee amounts as well. And we've already discussed a little bit about negotiating those.
So just as we said before, there are a few things to catch a scam before you sign. So if you see any false phone numbers, then you can just search it on Google if the phone number belongs to anyone. So if it's a false phone number, name, or an email address, then it's potentially a scam. If the name on the lease does not match the name that was listed on RentSmart, it's probably a scam. And this is why you want to make sure that, there's the name of the property manager and the landlord and everyone on the lease, because you want to see if it's a match. If there is incomplete language or grammar, you definitely do not want to sign. These are legal documents, so they probably have a law or a legal entity that's looking over the contract. So if there's incomplete grammar, it's definitely not a legal entity that wrote it. So if the term refundable is stated in the lease, then it's probably a scam. And just as we said, this is definitely a legal contract. And then there's some terms that, we don't commonly see in a legal contract. And also, if there is no screening process, it probably means they're just trying to get their money as quick as possible. So they don't even care about screening you because there is no apartment to screen you for. So if it feels wrong, also you want to trust your instincts. Some things are too good to be true. Like if you see a 1-bedroom apartment for $800 in Brookline, that is too good to be true.
Yeah,
Okay.
if all else fails of what we said, if you went through all the videos, there is a live tour, the details in the lease will also identify if it's a scam, but go through everything else as well. Get those videos, get those tours, and definitely use our resources. As we've pointed out, and if we've linked, our Lease Genius Guide helps you kind of break down the lease into smaller parts. And if you have specific questions, you can submit a form on our website. and we will help you review it. And a lot of kind of the lease terms, as you saw before, the trash, the noise, just has like a lot to do with being a good person or a good neighbor. More than ever, I think like students like also respect healthy hours of sleep. It's very important. But there are a lot of neighbors in our areas around Northeastern that aren't students. So just being a good neighbor in general, we have a lot of guides on how to do that. Talk to your neighbors, ask if like, oh, can we play music until 8 p.m.? Or I'm having a small gathering for dinner. I hope like that's okay. Just like talk to your neighbors, be a good person, keep intrusive noise to a minimum, take out your trash. Those are just good ways to maintain good relationships with those living around you. And then, but also protect yourself. You need to know your rights and responsibilities, know what are legal fees, what the landlords are legally responsible for. And you can try, make sure you attend like building meetings, be on the lookout for like emails from your landlords if there's major issues that are going on with like if there's a heavy snowstorm, you might get more information from your landlord. It's like, oh, we're going to clean, we're going to remove snow, but it might take us a little more time because there's extra snowfall. Those are things that can definitely happen as well. So you want to be in communication with your landlord.
So just like always, we definitely want you to keep in touch with us and know what's happening in the off-campus community, and also some of the resources that we can give you. For example, in our newsletter, you can sign up and we'll give you some helpful tips, some information about like living off campus, and some of our upcoming events. Our community ambassadors like myself, I would love if you could connect with me. I'm a Northeastern student just like you, and I have made the transition from living on campus to living off campus. I'm also an international student, so I can advise you on anything you want as well, and also provide some helpful information. And don't forget to follow our social media, and that's the best way to stay informed with everything we have going on. We throw some really cool events, and if you're definitely looking for something to do, it's definitely our OCS office. And
Once
this is
again,
our
yeah, here's all our contact. We'll leave this one up because I think the next slide is the Q&A slide. If you need to contact us in any way, it's all in our website. Hopefully at this point, you know where we are and to contact us if you have any other questions. So we have about 10 minutes before our subletting presentation. If we want to ask specifically about leases, I saw a lot of action in the message or in the chat. So hopefully those were all answered. I'll try to slowly scroll up and see if I can answer ones that weren't answered. Yeah, all payments should be made to the landlord. Oh, you're welcome. It's good to be in these presentations. We just try to educate as much as we can. We understand that Boston is probably one of the more intimidating cities, as there are so many students fighting for all the properties as well. You will get presentations sent to your email to you. They'll also be on our website. So we'll make sure you get all the information as you need it, but you can always also call and email us as well. Yay, thank you. Yeah, we try to keep them short, but also informative, and that's always like the balance. And there are just certain things we want to keep repeating. Take a virtual tour, take an in-person tour, make sure everything is in the details of the lease. Just always do your research. And then also the city of Boston has, I think in the past 10 years, done a good job trying to protect students by offering all these databases and RentSmart. Well, RentSmart is not city of Boston, but how to find a licensed realtor or landlord. And it's just something that all students should take advantage of, just because of the number of scammers and bad people there are out there. But at this point, if you're a Boston property manager and you do something that's not great, somebody will hear about it and they will likely not want to rent from you again unless you lower your rates. So you also have balance in that regard. We try to make it required. We advertise as much as we can, but we can't make students do things. Yeah, so we have a few minutes before the next presentation. I'll sit around if you need me to answer questions, and I think Mallory will be in on our next one too. Mallory's our wonderful director, and she'll be kind of leading the last two presentations of the day. You're probably sick and tired of hearing my voice, so. Oh wait, I'm gonna end this recording and start the next one in the next presentation.